is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback, Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's tied. He throws. It is.
Welcome, my friends, to the August 12th, 1974 edition of the Past Our Prime podcast. No, you have not traveled back in time, but we are looking back in time, as we do each week, 50 years ago, to the Sports Illustrated from August 12th, 1974, with Mike Marshall of the Dodgers on the cover. It was a fantastic season for Marshall and the Blue Crew, and we're lucky enough to talk with former LA Dodgers great Ron Cey. That's right, the Penguin will be joining us very shortly. A very interesting guy with lots of opinions on lots of topics, so look forward to chatting with him. Bill Mahoney
right there,
and Mark Hoffman joining me as
right
always.
there.
I'm Scott Johnston, by the way. And guys, when I say the name Ron Cey, what do you think of?
Penguin.
Yeah, I was thinking the nickname, but he was an awesome third baseman. He was that legendary infield.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's what I think of. I think of that Cey, Bill Russell, Davey Lopes, Steve Garvey infield that played for a major league record, 8.5 seasons.
Yep.
You know, we talk a lot about, records that will never be broken. I'm not saying maybe it will be.
No.
I don't think infield stay together for 3 years.
Well, with free agency now,
Yeah.
you're not going to keep him after 6 years, even if they all stayed there.
So anyway, very, very much looking forward to that. Let's get right to our scorecard section.
Oh, I have a quick ad I wanted to throw in.
Oh, Mark's going to
It's not even
with a wonderful ad.
It's not even an ad, really. Well, it's called Lakeominions, and they're condominiums overlooking the pines of Lake Tahoe. It's called Tahoe Summit, and they're asking people to write in because you can buy these brand new, condominiums.
20,000.
And quality condominiums from $49,000 to $83,000, okay, which to me seems like a lot of money in 1974. Mm-hmm. But anyway, for the fun of it, I went on Zillow and I looked up Tahoe Summits, which are still around, and there's one for sale. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, only 1,000 square feet. So it's not as much as it didn't go up as much as I thought it did. But originally, let's say this unit probably would have been around closer to $50,000. What do you think the asking price would be now?
800,000 now?
1974?
Yeah.
Oh, and okay.
1974 was 50,000.
50,000 now.
Today,
it's got to be.
It's on sale today
for 1.4.
No, see, I thought not that crazy.
900,000.
No, much less.
Oh wow.
Yeah, according to this, 529,500, which is still about 10 times what it was in 74.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, these are now 50-year-old condos.
Yeah.
And if you look at the pictures, they're like a building, and your condo's in the building, and so But I just thought.
I guess we're thinking California real estate versus.
Well, which would be $2 million.
I mean,
this is actually this California? This is.
But not
yeah,
southern.
South
Lake Tahoe's
Tahoe.
nice. I mean,
but if you can look at the picture, look at the beautiful Sierras.
Crazy. Yeah.
That does look beautiful.
Very nice.
Anyway, I just thought it was. I hoping too. I thought it'd be like 1 million, and I could rail on it. But still, if you bought it back then, you could still make 450,000.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's not
Profit.
bad.
That's not price. That's profit there.
All right, fresh off our chat last week with Bill Curry, and go back and listen to that. That was a sensational interview.
My golly.
That's the scorecard section where I'm going to start off. The NFL strike update, no progress. That's what we heard all the time as a kid. No progress. Management, did not agree to any demands during the past 3 days, said Bill Curry, president of the Players Association. They continue to try to bust this union. Roger Staubach has defected and reported to camp. Attendance for exhibition games was abysmally low. The regular season just a couple of weeks away. So, as we discussed with Coach Curry last week, the union was still kind of in its infancy, And man, the owners were basically like coming to the negotiation table, and their stance was, "We are not going to negotiate," and it seemed to work.
I don't know. That is a negotiation.
Well, it makes for short negotiations.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. All right, bye.
Yeah, we're not budging.
Yeah. You guys got one?
The interesting thing I saw on scoreboard was the thing called late summer lunacy, where people are bored in the dog days of summer, so they try to come up with unique things to kind of pass the time or compete. So there was in Boise, Idaho, these two people who were 11 years old decided they would try to dribble a basketball for 43 hours straight. That I don't know if I could dribble a basketball for 1 hour. I'd get pretty tired. But anyway, a local radio station helped them out. That's one of the strange things in Illinois, in a small town in Illinois. 125 people played basketball in shifts for 300 hours or 12 and a half days. It was for charity, and they heard the record was 270 hours. You know, there was a bunch of people doing like, we're bored, let's come up with some weird things to do.
And so they bounce it, then give it to their friend, or they're just one individual bouncing it. So if us three, you do, whatever.
I think it's
hours.
one person dribbling there. I think
270 hours.
Another one where they these guys played Monopoly, but the pieces were so small they each had to have a microscope.
Well, hey man, more power to them. Hey, they made it Sports Illustrated, so something's gone right.
No, not really.
Yeah.
You got too much time on your hand. Get a job.
It's called Talking Shop. It's about Brooks Robinson and trying to find a new glove. I remember years ago with the White Sox, Darren Erstad, the glove department, would send in all these gloves and they'd hang on a rack outside the White Sox clubhouse. And Darren Erstad walked me through how he picked a glove, everything he looked for. So I saw this and I thought, wow. So Brooks Robinson says to get a new glove, that means he has to try out 10 to 15 different ones. And the first thing he does is tighten up the laces to my needs. Then I usually take a little padding out of the side and thumb and down by the heel. Then I use it in practice for about a year before I'm ready to use it in a game. I keep 3 gloves, he says. I never use my game glove except for game play. I have a second one when I field batting practice and another for infield workouts. Usually the infield glove is the one I'm breaking in to replace my game glove. It's amazing the intricacies for just a glove. And Erstad said the same thing. He picked out 5 of them and he goes, see that right there? That's too hard. See the pad right there? I'd have to add. I mean, it's just amazing. I think, oh, you got a glove. Like the hand one like you do when you're in Little League. It's just amazing what they go through to get that.
You know what made
doctor and their equipment.
You know what made a good glove? You bought it at the store. You put a belt around it with some oil in it. You put a ball in there and you put it on your bed for a week. Oh. And that made a good glove,
Really?
Yeah.
See, I couldn't catch any, so I'd need a glove.
I had a glove I loved, and it was too small. Like it would stop like about right here on the palm. So people wondered how the hell I could catch anything with it, but I just loved that glove. And
well, it worked for Brooks, that's for sure, right? Yeah. I thought the amazing part was he takes a glove, he uses it in practice for a year before it's ready to be used in a game. I mean, that is knowing your craft.
Yes, it is.
And he won 16 consecutive gold gloves.
So he obviously knew something about picking a glove.
Here was a stat I did not know about Brooks Robinson. Played 2,870 games at third base, the most ever in Major League history at one position by almost 700 games. I mean, he played third base. That was it. He didn't play first. It was before the DH for the most part. I mean, Brooks Robinson. And when you think third base, it doesn't take long before Brooks Robinson's name comes up.
And did you guys, what was the World Series where he was like the human vacuum? Was that 69?
70?
70.
70 against the Reds.
Did anyone see that? Or
yes, I remember in 70.
I have very good memories of spitting up sweet potatoes.
While going, damn that Brooks Robinson, he can talk.
He can pick it.
I do have a they said it as well.
Go for it.
Because we talked about this guy once in one of our shows.
I think I know where you're
Jim
going.
Dent.
Yes.
Longest driver on the PGA Tour, but not always the most accurate. I can airmail the golf ball, but sometimes I don't put the right address on it.
Yeah. Well, it's just like the quarterback who has the unbelievable arm, but can't hit his target.
Jamarcus Russell.
That's what exactly I was thinking of.
Jamarcus Russell.
Right. Yeah. Right. Or Nuke LaLoosh, right?
That's right. I mean, that's right.
Joe Montana did not have a super strong arm, but he was so accurate
where to put it.
and great touch.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's get right to it. Back in December when we started promoting the show, it was the 50-year anniversary of baseball's winter meetings, and the Dodgers made 2 big deals in successive days that year, acquiring the toy cannon Jimmy Wynn, who was on the cover of SI in late May, and Mike Marshall, who was on the cover of this issue August 12th of 74. The article is called He Also Serves Who Sits and Waits. Now, Marshall was a relief pitcher, but nothing like anyone has seen in at least 40 years. I mean, he pitched almost every day. At one point, 13 consecutive games, I think it was.
Yep, every day.
A student of the game and of everything else. Marshall was kind of a intellectual, if you will. Kind of came off as kind of snobby.
Yeah, very.
He had a degree in physiological psychology from Michigan State. Recently, Andy Messersmith was taken out of a game after 7 innings of shutout baseball. Record of 13-2 for Messersmith at the time, having himself a great year. He was asked if he was miffed about being taken out of the game because he's throwing a shutout. And he said, "So what if I go 9 and get a shutout? That's personal baseball, and I don't believe in it. Besides, Mike had a day off yesterday. We were afraid he was getting rusty."
Well, I mean, listen to his numbers in 74.
Yeah, right?
This is insane. 15-12, a 2.42 ERA. He appeared in 106 games. He had 21 saves. He threw over 208 innings. Starters can throw 208 innings today.
Logan Webb led the National League last year, led baseball last year with 216.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
insane.
He would have been 4th in innings pitched last year.
Because Marshall would come in and pitch 2, 3, 4 innings. It didn't matter. It wasn't
and then do it again the next day.
Right. It wasn't like
it really is amazing
When
for
you
us
look
because
at it now.
the game has changed
Yes.
completely
Yes.
differently.
And they're saying that he was in 73 of the Dodgers' first 109 games. That is. I mean, guys, sometimes I look at some of the guys we play our little fantasy leagues, and I watch some of my relievers. Sometimes they're off 6 days.
Right.
Yeah.
And this guy's
Yeah,
in
if they're not
every other day.
if that team's not winning,
They don't get in.
They don't get in.
They
right?
don't get in. Yeah.
How about this for a luxury? The Dodgers only carried 9 pitchers because of him.
Yeah.
right.
Because he could go 2 or 3 innings almost every day. And the other thing I thought was funny is they said that either up to this point or for the season, the Dodgers only had 26 complete games. Now, 26 complete games now would by
That'd be
and
a lot,
far lead the league.
But just think, you're sitting there in the infield, and pretty much those 13 days, every day, now pitching for the Dodgers.
Right.
I mean, I guess back at that time, it was like, yeah, that's the way it goes. Nowadays, they'd be putting a statue of someone like that outside.
Well, and he threw a screwball, and I always think of screwballs. I think of Fernando, but he threw the screwball. But I love this quote that Marshall had. He said something like, "Baseball is a hobby I pursue," but he kind of find it kind of boring. It wasn't really his passion.
Yeah, he didn't like baseball. He didn't like the fans.
You see, Mike, he hated everybody. I mean, you read that. If you don't read his stats and someone's just telling you about a certain guy, you'd walk up and go, "Dude, relax."
Yeah, he said, as an athlete, I am no one to be idolized. I will not perpetuate that hoax. They say I don't like kids. I think that by refusing to sign autographs, I am giving the strongest demonstration that I do like them. I am looking beyond mere expediency to what is truly valuable in life. I can tell you as a 10-year-old kid, I'd have just hated him.
Oh, yes.
But Mark, Scott, you said when he said that, he explained about to the youngsters. He said once refusing autographs to a group of youngsters. He explained that he would willingly sign if the boys could show him that their autograph books also contained the signatures of their teachers and others who were really meaningful in their lives.
You know, if that was the
Really?
case,
If you gave you're 10 years old, you walk up and you'd be like,
Right.
but if I knew that ahead of time, I'd just
would.
scribble like little notes in there. Oh, this is my
Right.
teacher,
Or
Mr.
could
Peterson.
you imagine the day before going to Mr. Wills and going, "Can I get your autograph?" Get
out of here. That's right.
Making fun of me?
And other people that are important in your life. The dentist is in there and he's just about to give you a shot. And you go, Dr. McSmith, you think you can sign it? Because Mike Marshall won't sign it.
What a strange
Now,
cat.
do you know where Mike Marshall started his career?
Angels. Where?
Come on, think of me.
Detroit?
Tigers.
Oh, really? That's right.
In fact,
It's just traded.
I have my 1968 program that I got going to a Tigers White Sox game in April of 1968. And if you go through it, Mike Marshall's there on
Where
the
is
roster.
it?
He was in the minor league.
You have it?
I have it still.
You should
I'll
have
go
brought
find
that
it.
with you.
I didn't even think about it till now.
I know,
I'll
I
bring
do
it.
the same thing.
I thought
Pat
this
Dobson
was
was on the team.
interesting. Steve Garvey was a student of his at Michigan State.
Wow.
He said Garvey said of Marshall, he's inventive in a game that hasn't had much inventiveness in the last 103 years. He was a student of Marshall's in a kinesiology class at Michigan State. So, strange guy on a loaded team. That Dodgers team had Don Sutton and Tommy John before he got hurt. Of course, we mentioned Messersmith and Marshall, the infield of Garvey, Lopes, Russell, and our guest now, third baseman for the LA Dodgers from 1973 to 1982, one of the greatest players in Dodgers history, both in LA and Brooklyn. A six-time All-Star, all with the Dodgers, a World Series champion in 1981 when they beat the Yankees to capture it all. Third baseman, Ron Cey. Ron, what a joy to have you on the Past Our Prime podcast. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Ron, that 73 Dodgers team was good, really good. But the Reds, those damn Reds. So the Dodgers go and make a couple of big offseason moves, one of them being acquiring Mike Marshall, the cover man of this week's edition of Sports Illustrated. That guy was phenomenal for you guys that year, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. As you mentioned, the 73 club, that was actually our rookie season. We had 10 players making their, I think, their initial rookie year that season, and won 95 games. Probably would have qualified us under today's standards of the divisional play and the wild cards. But we fell a little bit short of the Cincinnati Reds, and they had a great team as well. Their 1976 version of the Cincinnati Reds was the best team that I ever played against in my career. And so they were a very strong opponent. The Western Division was pretty much the deciding who was going to go to the World Series. If you look at it, it was either the Reds or the Dodgers. All due respect to the great teams in the East, the Phillies, the Pirates, Montreal, etc. But yes, the addition of Mike Marshall in 1974, pitched in, I believe, 104 games, major league record. Under current standards today, I don't think he would have approached half those appearances because they're in a self-protective mode. But he won the Cy Young Award winner that year. We won 102 games, and we made our first appearance in the World Series as a group against the Oakland A's. At one point, Ron, he pitched in 13 straight games. Now, in today's game, as you kind of mentioned, if a guy throws in 3 straight games, his agent is having a heart attack. But even for back then, 13 in a row, I can't imagine. I see you at third base just going, oh my God, they're bringing him in again. I mean, were you shocked at how often he came in? No, quite honestly. Mike was majored in kinesiology. He was a teacher at Michigan State. He was always in line with all the latest technology about arm development and arm angles and everything else. He had a practice of throwing just about every single day. Goes against all the standards of which are in place in Major League Baseball today. And he was really one of a kind in that sense. But it was pretty much just another day's work with Mike. The amount of work that he did was not overwhelming for him at all. You guys also add Jimmy Wynn to that team. So the offense is loaded with the toy cannon, as you mentioned, a bunch of rookies in 73. Now you and Garvey and Lopes have a season under your belt. You got Billy Russell there. I mean, you guys were loaded, weren't you? Well, the addition of Jimmy Wynn turned out to be, just an amazing deal for us. We had Willie Davis in center field, who certainly was one of the all-time greats in Dodger history, and it was time for him to go. And Jimmy Wynn came over from Houston and hit 30 home runs, drove in 100, scored 100, hit third in the lineup. Provided us with that extra spark. We came real close to having 3 guys driving 100 runs that year. It was a major step up. Walter Alston was right about what he perceived in us. He felt that we were going to all be very successful. And the toy cannon, in my opinion, was the most valuable player that year. Lou Brock would have had strong consideration as well. And it just turns out that Steve Garvey won the MVP. Jimmy Wynn's WAR ranking that year was the highest of any player that we had during that period of time that I played there. And of the other 9 or 10 years, my overall ranking is number one. I was the number one ranked player on our team for 6 of the 10 years by WAR. The other players were Willie Crawford, Jimmy Wynn, Reggie Smith, and Pedro Guerrero.
Man, and then Ron, I'm looking over just looking back at your career. Tell me about the infield with you, Garvey, Lopes, and Russell. What made you guys so successful? And just the fact that you played together for, 8 straight years was amazing.
This was 8.5 years. You can definitely say that we were the longest running infield in Major League history. And by fact, we are the most successful infield in Major League history. I'm not going to say the greatest, but most successful fits. There isn't an accomplishment that even gets halfway in terms of the years that we played. 4 World Series, a World Championship. Every member of the infield was a multiple All-Star. We played in 20-some All-Star games as a unit, won more games than anybody else. And, all the accolades that went with it. We have a shrine in Cooperstown for the infield. We have no such thing at Dodger Stadium.
God, that seems like an injustice.
Yes.
So what was it like playing for Walter Alston? Because everyone knows Tommy, knows Rah-Rah Tommy. What was it like, though, playing that 74 team under Alston?
We had another year under our belt with Walt. Walt was very quiet. He liked to do business, behind closed doors a little bit. If he had something to say to you, he would address it. I had 2 really terrific moments with him, learning processes. I think one was my rookie year and probably the second year. One was more oriented towards mental preparation, and one was about hitting. And both of them were instrumental conversations for me to have. And I ended up having even more respect for Walt after that, with the way that he dealt with those things. And very quiet demeanored, but a very strong individual. Tommy, very gregarious, outgoing, hands-on, hugging players. They both work. Both are Hall of Fame managers. A delight to play for both of them.
Now, Ron, on that 74 team in July of that year, you guys are on all cylinders, and then all of a sudden, one pitch, and everything kind of comes to a halt. And I'm talking about Tommy John and losing him to what inevitably became known as the Tommy John surgery. How big of a blow was that for you guys?
Well, we didn't know how big of a blow it was, in the beginning. I mean, guy goes down. We never experienced, quite what was to become Tommy John surgery, and all the players that have experienced those same things. And of course, our team doctor was Dr. Frank Joe, and he is the one who performed the surgery and made it famous. And, it's pretty much a second life for those players today. A lot of them actually, after undergoing surgery, have been clocked at higher speeds, stronger arm. So I'm not recommending that you go out there and have Tommy John surgery so that you can throw harder or have a stronger arm. But it turns out that way. It was an incredible surgery done. And Tommy's got his name etched in baseball for eternity.
I think the thing is with 288 wins, actually, he won more games after his surgery. Why is a guy like that, obviously with the surgery named after him as well, why is he not in the Hall of Fame?
Well, you'd have to ask those people who vote. There is no criterion today, the way I see it. When you look at the prerequisites that were in front of us, at least, 300 wins was automatic. 3,000 hits was automatic. 500 home runs were automatic. The rest of it is kind of up for grabs in terms of saying you need to get to this level, because there's a lot of people who don't have those credentials that are in the Hall of Fame. So with the way that the game has changed, we have probably seen our last 300 game winner without question. They just don't allow these guys to pitch long enough to achieve those victories, those late inning victories. If you are going to try and go back to old school and try to coerce, all those great pitchers, I mean Gibson and Koufax and Drysdale and Carlton and all the rest, Seaver, if you're going to tell them that, they were coming out of a ball game in the sixth inning and they had held the team scoreless and you had a 1-0 lead, who would you rather have out there, Tom Seaver or the bullpen? I'll go with Tom Seaver, any day. And, I think the manipulation in baseball has reached an all-time high. I'm not really high on a lot of the changes. Certainly the pitch clock works in terms of efficiency. Not only for the timing of the game, but the focus of the infielders is probably the most important thing that I see out of that. If you have a pitcher who's taken forever, your infielders are set to go in a certain period of time. And if you lose them in a rhythm, then it's going to be hard to get them to constantly try to time you. When you have 15 seconds or so, whatever that clock is, to get there, then everybody's got an opportunity to be in sync.
Ron, I had the pleasure of working with you about 10 years ago. I produced a Talking Blue show that focused on the 1981 season. It was you, Steve Yeager, Lasorda as a panel, along with John Hartog, emceeing it. And the interesting thing about it, here you play your whole career and you have the frustration of 74, 77, and 78, getting to the World Series and not winning it. Talk about the 81 season when you finally accomplished everything that you wanted to do.
We were pretty much a team of destiny at that point. We had fallen down, actually, we were, I think we were pretty much, the opening game of the playoffs in 81 against Montreal, we won, but we were playing from behind in all of the playoff series, including the World Series. And, it just didn't bother us, not to say that we weren't concerned, but it just didn't bother us. We felt confident. Those were tough played games. If we were getting blown out and our confidence had been getting destroyed, that's one thing, but we weren't, and we were close. And, we had the 1977, actually, let's go back to 74. In 1974, we lost, I think, 3 one-run games in a series with Oakland, and they were going for a three-peat. And their experience, certainly helped them, and our inexperience certainly played against us a little bit. But nonetheless, we were close. And after that World Series is over with, Walter Olson shut down the clubhouse for literally a couple minutes is all. And what he had to say was, he says, I don't want you guys to be disappointed with your performance, guys. We played an outstanding team. They went for a three-peat. Their experience showed. And he said, we're going to do this more than once. We're going to come back again. So let's just gear it up and look positive as to where we got this year. And sure enough, we returned a couple of years after that. And we were basically the first 5 years of my career, we were in the World Series 3 times. And the last 5 years of my career in with the Dodgers, we were in 3 of the 5 World Series. So we had a very successful, dominant team back in the 70s. And the 77 team, we had an opportunity to go into Game 6 in Yankee Stadium. And of course, Reggie Jackson had his game of games. There wasn't anything that you could do about it. You kind of hoped that this would have been a regular season game rather than a World Series that somebody has that kind of game. And so that was the end of that. 78, Reggie is once again in the focal point with the hip interference call. It wasn't called. If we would have had instant replay back then, that would have been a world championship that we would have won. That would have put us up 3-1, and it would have been over with. 81, we just kept fighting back. And then as it turned out, we swept the last 4 games of the 81 World Series, and, our destiny had been completed. And it was also the last game that the fabled infield would play together. And that night in Game 6, the infielders represented the first 4 hitters in the lineup. Really an incredible accomplishment, incredible sense of irony, if you will. But yeah, it was a great time for us, Dodger baseball, and our fans.
We're talking with the Penguin, Ron Cey, 6-time All-Star for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And Ron, you have your own podcast that you do. What's the name of it, and what do you guys talk about?
Well, it's called "We'll See About That," and that is a phrase that I used when I was addressing somebody who thought my time was up. And so I decided to carry it over, and I had no idea that I was going to be doing a podcast. I started this last year, so at 75, I had no idea that I was going to be, venturing off into podcasting. I know nothing about the radio business, still don't. The podcast business is not something that I'm completely pleased about, but the most beneficial thing that I've had with my podcast, and I believe it's eclectic would be the word, is the number of people that have stories to tell. And they're not always names that you may know, but somebody has a story to tell that has been really, really educational for me. I've learned a great deal about it, in awe of some of these stories. And just recently, yesterday, as a matter of fact, I had the great Rick Barry on. And he was very entertaining, and he kind of feels the same way about basketball being manipulated a little bit like I do about baseball.
Did Rick teach you the underhand free throws?
Yes, and he actually I think he is the only player to have the statistics of 50% from the field, 40% from the 3-point line, 90% from the foul line for a career.
Wow.
For a career. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And he told me yesterday that his last 2 years, he shot, he was disappointed. 2 years, he missed 19 free throws. Yeah. And he shot 92%, 92% from the foul line. And he said, he was a little disappointed that it wasn't 91 or 92, but 50, 40, and 90, incredible. And just an incredible career.
Yes. Yes.
Your Mike Eruzione interview was also very.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I had a
good.
lot of fun with Mike. The whole build up, to the championship game and how they rallied behind it, and they were severe underdogs. And hey, do you believe in miracles?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Now let me ask, Ron, going back to the 70s with Lasorda and all the guys that he'd bring in, how fun was it? How great was it to be a Dodger at that point? You had Don Rickles and Frank Sinatra. Tell me some of those fun stories.
Well, they wouldn't get in a clubhouse today with all the restrictions that go on there. And I'm no longer an employee of the Dodgers. That ended about 3 years ago. It was a lot of fun. We had a great following from Hollywood back then. All the stars would come out. They would not only be at the games, but when we had our celebrity game, all the stars would come out. I mean, all of them. And today, you don't recognize anybody who comes out that's on the field today. But it was such a pleasure to have all those people. We were the first team in Major League history to draw 3 million people. That was back in 1978. And so we had a product sold very well with our fan base, and we gave them 4 World Series and a World Championship and all the great players that came with it. So we had a tremendous relationship. When we went in the tank for a couple of weeks, they treated us like family, but in a kind of a different way. They didn't send us off to our room and said, get things cleaned up, go, don't come out of your room until you get this thing over with. They were kind of letting, give them some slack. We know who they are. Let them work through the difficult spots. So they really didn't get on us like they would have possibly in New York or Philadelphia.
It's funny, you were talking about the celebrities. I remember the very first time I ever walked into Dodgers clubhouse, it was 1981, and I walked into Lasorda's office, and there is Rickles doing a stand-up act. And I thought, oh, this is the way it always is. You got some entertainer in there doing his stuff. And I remember Steve Garvey's last home game at Dodger Stadium. Tony Orlando's in there, talking with Steve after the game. Were you ever in awe of stuff like seeing all the celebrities there, or was it just, they're a fan just like anyone else?
No, it's certainly not about that. The last part of it anyway, but we became friends. Frank told me that, I was his favorite player. but we really enjoyed having them. And Rickles had a routine that he would do when he would come in with Frank, and he would literally walk into the clubhouse and go locker to locker, and he would say, "Rick, Monday, Jesus, great catch out there last night. Did you have your eyes closed when you dropped that ball?" It was stuff like that. He would just go in there and rip everybody apart, and the whole place was going hysterical with it. It was just a lot of fun. It gave us some levity, a chance to breathe a little bit, a smile, all of that. And it was a terrific time for us all. And, like I said, after I think it was 1977 World Series, Frank Sinatra had invited me and my wife and Tommy and his wife to go up to Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas to be a part of a weekend that he was doing 2 nights, and took care of us the whole weekend. And we ended up running into Muhammad Ali, and that was my wife's first autograph. And she does not have that today, unfortunately. But it was kind of like that. All of a sudden we were running into somebody else, and it was a thrill, obviously. But remember, they also think of us in the same way.
Right,
and
right.
I don't. I mean, I certainly don't.
Right.
But when you have them saying, "Oh my God, such a pleasure to meet you." I remember the first time that I ran into, oh God, please help me, Dustin Hoffman. There is something that's kind of funny that happens when you're out here, because you have all forms of entertainment celebrities. And you got your rock stars, you got your movie stars, you got your television stars, all kinds of stars. And so I walked up and I introduced myself to Dustin Hoffman. He says, "I know who you are." He says, "There's no introduction necessary." So as it turns out, from that point on, it's like, well, they know who you are and you know who they are. And so you just walk up and shake hands and start talking. It's really odd. It's crazy, but it's like that. And I had to get used to that,
Whole new world.
Wow.
Yeah, whole new world. And it was so much fun that they were that engaged with what we were doing. And we got to participate in some of the things like Sinatra with what he did. Really a very special time. Very special time. I had a big relationship with, and still do, with Fleetwood Mac. Their logo is the penguin. I am the penguin. Their publicity agent put us together almost the moment that they had learned that I was the penguin. So I started going to rehearsals and tapings, and they came to my house. I went to their house. I was going to concerts. I had this fantasy in the off season that I would be, on stage, doing something with Fleetwood Mac, and of course that wasn't going to be possible because I'm not musically inclined in any way, shape, or form. But it would have been kind of cool to play baseball, and then, hey, listen, guys, I'm busy. I'm on tour with. We're going to be real busy here for the next 4 months. We're going to go to Europe and South America. Yeah, I'm going to be with Fleetwood Mac, and we're going to be hanging out. But it was a nice thought, and I kid him about it once in a while, especially with Mick, who lives in Hawaii, who is also part of that devastating fire in Lahaina. Lost his restaurant over there and all his gear, but he's recovering from that, and it was such an honor to have these guys and be able to share something in common.
Hey, Ron, I have a question for you, but I'm not sure there's a good answer for it. We were talking about those Dodgers and Reds teams from the 70s. Dodgers and Reds, Reds and Dodgers.
Yeah.
They were going back and forth as to who would win the division. The difference is the Reds, and you briefly mentioned this when we brought up Tommy John, but the Reds are littered with Hall of Fame guys. And I just feel like your team is overlooked in some ways. I mean, because you're right there with one of the great teams of all time, and I just don't feel like you guys get your just due. Do you feel that there is some truth to that?
Yes, a little bit. If you're talking about old standards and you go through individually and you look at each player's individual statistics, pre-metrics. Okay. We're a little short. Nobody hit 500 home runs. Nobody got 3,000 hits. Nobody won, or Sutton won 300 games, but he got into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
The rest of us, get credit more for, the infield as a whole. And that's why it's important that we have a shrine in Cooperstown in the Hall of Fame, because there was nothing done that was even close to what we did, what we accomplished. I think the only infield that came even close played maybe 4.5 years together. And when you add in all the other stuff that we did, then it's really, it's done. You guys are the most successful. There may have been an infield, which I could not name right now, that played for maybe a year or two together, that may have, statistically been, the greatest infield of all time. You may have been able to say that about the Yankee infield when you have Teixeira, Cano, Jeter, and Rodriguez. I mean, let's put it in a more honest term. They were certainly the highest paid infield of all time at that moment. So yeah, they find a way to separate those things. But yes, I do believe that, and I will just simply mention from my standpoint. I'm sure everybody has something that they can add to their own. But when you look at a guy that I grew up being compared to when I was 16 years old, in a local boy named Ron Santo. If you look at our 162 game averages, you put in the numbers, take away the names, they're interchangeable. You can't pick between the other. And he is in the Hall of Fame, and I am not. And unfortunately for him, it came posthumously, which I'm not interested in awards that are posthumous at all.
Yeah.
My family can't enjoy it with me. I certainly can't enjoy it with them. I understand it's better than not, but it's really too late. It is really too late.
And now, speaking of Hall of Famers, I know you were a big fan of his growing up. Talk to me about Willie Mays. Why was he so special to you?
Well, he I had this dream when I was probably 8 years old that I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. And I was really intensely following, the game. We didn't have computers or cell phones. We had newspapers and local news and libraries. But I just was determined to know the history of baseball. And so, here comes Willie Mays, and fell in love with the guy. He was my favorite player growing up. And the Tacoma Giants were the AAA affiliate of the San Francisco Giants, and they are in my backyard. And I used to go to the games and watch all of the players that went on to prominence: Marichal, McCovey, Perry, Tom Haller, Jim Ray Hart, you name it. There's lots of guys in there. And they came and played an exhibition game. The Giants came and played an exhibition game, and Willie Mays came to Tacoma, played in Cheney Stadium, and he had a triple off the Green Monster in center field. And I'll never forget that. And so I just had this, wow. I remember the day that Willie Mays hit 4 home runs. I was out playing baseball. Imagine that. And listening to the radio, and it says, "Oh my God, the San Francisco Giants must be," and Willie Mays, hit 4 home runs. And I'm saying, 4 home runs? You got to be kidding me. 4 home runs? My guy just hit 4 home runs. Just kind of solidified the fact that I, just loved the way this guy played the game. And as it turned out, Willie Mays, I played against him for the first time in an exhibition game when he was with the Mets. And they shared the St. Petersburg training facility in spring training, the Cardinals and the Mets. And Willie comes up in his first at bat. It was destined to come to me. He had a line drive on the first pitch right at me. I mean, I don't know what that means, but whatever it does, it was all good, And I don't remember what I did with the baseball after that. I think I took it and put it in my glove and put it in the clubhouse and Played in a game later that year in Shea Stadium. Willie had homered. He's coming around second, headed for third. I got my glove up over my face like this, and I'm saying, my man just hit a home run, and I'd really like to shake his hand. And I didn't. And later on, as time would have it, we developed a friendship, and I reminded him that I was his favorite. He was my favorite player, and a couple of these little incidental things that happened along the way. And of course, he was thrilled. We went up to San Francisco. We had a Dodger Giant, I think it was 60th anniversary, 50th anniversary. I don't recall. Maybe it's the 60th. 58. Yeah, it'd be 60, 2018. And they invited some Dodgers up to participate in this on-field event. And I had this picture of Willie and I, and he didn't sign it. And I was hoping to get it signed. So I made a request. And Willie was working quite a bit then for the Giants. And I asked a particular person, if I brought this picture up, would Willie be okay to sign it? And Willie wasn't coming to the ballpark that day. But it was kind of like, Willie's not coming today, but when you asked for him, he's now coming.
Oh,
and
wow.
he's going to be here for you.
Wow.
And so I had about 20 minutes with his caretaker alone, signed my picture. We took a couple pictures, and actually, as soon as we're done, or maybe in the next couple of hours, I have this picture that I'm talking about right now that I'm going to post on Instagram. And it just made everything come full circle. This childhood dream. I get to meet my guy, play against him. We become friends. I mean, as good as it gets. And you know what, guys? I got tears all over my face.
Wow, we could see.
Yeah.
We do a segment here, a trivia little segment called 50-50, where I give you a 50% chance of getting a trivia question from someone involved 50 years ago. So I have a bonus one for you just because of Willie Mays, okay? So
I hope I can answer it.
True or false? Willie Mays once appeared in an episode of the TV series Bewitched.
I would say yes.
That is correct. And ironically, that's how I first found out about Willie Mays as a little kid. I'm watching the show and then I want to know more about him because they see him at the party and they go, "Isn't that Willie Mays? Is he a witch?" And they go, "Yeah, that's how he hits all those homers."
Well, Vince Scully, before he passed away, and has said this in numerous broadcasts or interviews, he felt that the greatest player that he ever saw play the game was Willie Mays. And, it's hard to argue with. When you do the metrics today, Babe Ruth is still ranked number 1. Barry Bonds is number 2. Willie Mays is number 3. Ty Cobb is number 4. Henry Aaron's number 5. And so, Ted Williams once said, he says, you are listed as being one of the top greatest 3 hitters in the history of Major League Baseball. How do you feel about that? And he says, well, I'm good with 3, but he says, if I'd have been any lower than that, I'd have a problem with it. But it's just the idea that, the everything that was done in the past, statistically, as we grade things, the metrics now are a part of Major League agreement. Every player in Major League Baseball has been graded back with metrics to the beginning of time. So when you Google somebody and you're looking at all their stats, you will see a prominent number there listed, WAR. And that's kind of where people think you sit today. Right. And, if we're going to go that far, then I should tell you that I am the highest ranked Los Angeles Dodger infielder all time. And the only 2 infielders above me for all of Dodger history are Pee Wee Reese and Jackie Robinson. And then Gil Hodges rounds out that all-time Dodger team, and along with Roy Campanella. And then the LA Dodger team is essentially our infield with Maury Wills replacing Bill Russell at shortstop, and Mike Piazza being behind the plate. So either way, it's substantial territory. I think the thing that I'm most proud of is that we, as a unit, were able to carve our own way into Dodger history. We made, our statement about our time, because there certainly was a lot laid down before us. When you look at all the great players that the Brooklyn Dodgers had and the championship that they won, and when you went to Vero Beach, you saw all these great players individually, on the wall, and the championships, and subliminally, it left a major message for us to think about every day. And when you walk back through the halls in the morning, you're reminded of it constantly. So what they're asking. And fortunately enough, we had a great group of players that met the challenge and made our own little history.
Ron, you just throw out these names: Pee Wee Reese and Jackie Robinson and Roy Campanella, Gil Hodges. I mean, and right
it's pretty
there,
awesome, isn't it?
Right there
amazing.
in the middle of them is number 10, third baseman Ron Cey for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yep.
I can't tell you what a joy it's been to chat with you today, and I thank you for coming on the show and giving us your great stories. Really, really enjoyed it. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, guys. It's always a good idea every once in a while to bring out the little boy in me. I enjoy visiting those places. It was a part of my process. I had a lady after about 4 years of which I had established myself, and we were in New York, and I don't recall the name of the magazine, but she wanted to do an article, and it was called Overnight Star. And one of the questions that she asked me, she says, "Well, what would you have done if you hadn't been able to play Major League Baseball?" And I said, "I would have played Major League Baseball." And she said to me, she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, you must have misunderstood my question. I'll state it again." I said, "No, you said it perfectly. There was no plan B. This was going to happen, and I meant it. And I was ready to do what I needed to do. And I had a lot of bumps in the road, just like everybody else. I didn't run 100 meters in 10 flat. I couldn't press the building. I was a guy that was 5'9" and 180 pounds and determined. And I had success along the whole way. There wasn't anything that knocked me off of my belief, that I can't do this.
I'm glad that the mentality and that grittiness meant that you didn't have to come up with a plan B, Ron, because plan A worked out rather well. So once again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. I really enjoyed it.
One last thing I wanted to mention, though, about Mike Marshall, and I love the pictures of him, because if you look at him, he doesn't really look like an athlete. He's stocky. He's got a little bit of a belly, but he's got this great long sideburns that connect to the mustache. So, like, if they were still doing Westerns, which they did in 74, he could fit right in the Old West.
He would.
Yeah. Winning one for the slipper. Now, this was about how, we know the heavyweights ruled the boxing world 50 years ago. Welterweights would rule it a decade later. The 80s was the prime for the welterweight. But the best welterweight in the world at that time was a Cuban boxer by the name of Jose Mantequilla Napoles, a member of the Boxing Hall of Fame. He was taking on Hegemony Lewis in this issue, and it was a great fight that Napoles won by TKO when Lewis couldn't come out for the 10th round. Mantequilla can fight forever, said trainer Angelo Dundee. There's a name from the past, huh? He ages like fine wine, no waste, the old master, the great boxer, the left hand coming into the belly, boom, boom. Then when he brings the hands down, the left hook to the head and the right, and none of them missing, you just saw one of the real great ones. So one of the all-time greats, Jose Mantequilla Napoles. Mark?
Well, as great as his boxing career was, and he had a really good boxing career, he was a two-time undisputed champ. He was one of the great fighters in his class. And he won 81-7 with 54 knockouts. But the thing, to me, that stands out the most to him was his very limited movie career.
It would.
Or if he played for the Tigers.
Guy's a boxing Hall
Yeah,
of Famer,
yeah.
and Mark's going to go look at
He
these
was in the
Spanish
Brady Bunch
movies
in
that nobody saw.
1969.
Yes, because he was also an actor. As great of a fighter he was. And one of the great movies that he was in was called The Revenge of the Crying Woman.
Yes.
And back then in Mexico, they did a lot of horror movies and different type of movies where the wrestler would be the hero. So Santo, a hero wrestler, helps a professor and his beautiful niece find a clue to a treasure that will be used to help local children. The clue is a medallion worn by a mummy in a cave known
Now,
as
see,
the
I
Crying-
read that and go, no interest.
Yeah.
Bill reads that and goes, not going to watch it. Mark goes, where do I get this?
Where do I get his
How do I
bomb?
see this?
And he's the second lead in this
Are
one.
you gonna? Have you watched the movie?
No, I have not. I need to go
There
see
you
it and see it
go.
now. But to me, that was just fantastic. And they were so. I remember watching like these old Mexican horror movies. Like I did a lot of vampire films, and they would scare the shit out of me as a kid.
Oh my God!
I know,
Son of a...
shite,
What-
as they say in
Oh my gosh!
But
Yeah, that hurts.
you watch it now, and you're like, oh my God, that is so bad. The fake fangs are falling out of that lady's mouth. But I just thought that was just hilarious. That
You also thought every Super Bowl was the same score.
Yeah.
that's true. I did.
There
But
wasn't
he
a
was.
lot going on up there.
But in trivia, he was the world welterweight boxing champion in 69, 70, and 71, 75.
Yeah, no,
But man, how many boxers like that have said that they've been in a movie like, the
Joe Frazier.
Yeah.
the
That's
Revenge of
that's
the
right.
Crying Woman?
That's Joe Frazier.
No way.
Hey Joe. Hey Joe. Yeah,
Right.
I remember that.
Well, it's going to be hard to top that one.
Yeah.
But let's try. Let's go to the Red Hot Factory for the pros. A semi-pro team in Baltimore. Lots of great players have passed through. Al Kaline.
Yeah.
Huh? What do you think of that, Mark? Huh?
Yeah.
He was
Reggie Jackson.
Baltimore guy.
He was never in a Mexican horror movie, but maybe you still
don't know
like
that,
him.
do you?
Yeah, that's true.
He might be in one.
Two of the guys, Kaline and Reggie Jackson, that were scouted and managed by a local guy named Johnny Use. Jackson did not know the racial situation when he called Use for a tryout in 1965. Use did not know Jackson was black because, says Reggie, I could talk like a white boy. When Jackson showed up at Swan Park, Use had him hit, run, and field against the best players on the team. After Jackson put on an exhibition that Use had never seen, he said he looks white all the time. Use denied saying that, but it's a great story if it's true.
They were friends. I think him and Reggie became close friends.
Yeah.
So I don't think I like the fact that Al Kaline you talked about, he went from there and signed with the Tigers for $30,000.
Oh, wow.
And because Mark did a money thing where you go back, I did that too. That is now worth 1974 was $30,000. Now it's worth $191,000 today.
Well, and like the Johnnies were named after Johnny's used cars.
Yeah.
So the Baltimore Johnnies were, but there were no lemons, man. Those Johnny teams were really good.
Didn't they win like 27
It says
amateur titles?
21 years in a
titles?
row or
Yeah,
something.
But
yeah.
that's interesting because I went and looked in 1991. It says they've won 37 straight titles.
So
which
are
means
they the Harlem Globetrotters?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they just, I think every other team, the Washington Generals, they just kept winning and winning.
Yeah.
But I did look because it's coming up. They're not in the championships this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
streak has ended. The player on the team from then that everyone was talking and comparing to Reggie is Willie Mays Aikens.
I remember him.
A
with
young
the-
kid
yeah.
with tremendous power at South Carolina State. He was hitting 472
Mm-hmm.
with 11 home runs, 40 runs batted in. He would be taken with the second pick by the California
I remember he
Angels
played
in the
him.
75
Yep.
draft. He
Yep.
was a good hitter.
He was.
He had a good rookie season in 79. I think Carew got hurt that
Yep,
year, and,
yep.
and Aikens filled in for him. A year later,
Didn't Aikens get in trouble with the law or something?
is that
like
what
that?
it was?
I think
Because
it
he got
was.
traded after
to
his
Kansas
rookie
City.
season to the Royals.
Yeah, wasn't
Helped
it a
them
year or
get-
two after that? I think.
What?
I thought it was a year or so after that.
It was his right after his rookie
okay, yeah,
season.
trade, 'cause I know there was some
79's
sort of-
his rookie season, and
Yeah.
he's the World Series hero in 80.
Yes, 'cause
He's
he was a
one
great
of
hitter.
two players ever to hit 2 home runs in 2 games
Wow.
in the same series.
Wow.
But the Royals lost in 6 games, and then of course Willie Mays did have some issues with the law, and his career was cut short. But I went back and looked at his numbers. He
He's a
could
good
always
hitter, man.
hit.
He was a good
He
hitter.
could always hit,
Yep.
even with all those
Yep.
issues. So
Angels also had Paul Hartzell, who was on that team as well. He didn't fare as well as Willie Mays Aikens.
Paul
with the
Hartzell,
Angels.
pitcher?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad I know that.
Those
really-
are the years I watched
that's
every
really
game
important.
and knew everything. So when I saw Paul Hartzell, I thought, I remember that guy. And yeah. Like Mark and Tigers, you just don't you remember everything when you're a kid.
Right, exactly. Can't remember anything you did
No,
yesterday.
but-
Now, there's
But
a
you can remember
story
the
here
kid.
on skeet shooting.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
In
yeah.
San
Now,
Antonio.
I'm not going to talk about skeet shooting, and Bill's not going to talk
No.
about it. But guess who is?
That's right, me.
Mark's
and
got
it
a
all has to
skeet
do
story.
with a Spanish horror movie that I want to.
With Napolis in it.
That's right. It was Samson the Vampire Woman. No, actually, so I've never fired a gun in my life. The only thing I've done is ski. So that's technically a shotgun as a gun. So I was up at a dude ranch, and were doing some skeet shooting. So, I've been riding horses. You would ride in the morning and the afternoon. And my wife and daughter were riding, but my butt was getting kind of sore. So I was looking
Surprising.
for
I'm
something
not
else
sure
to
what's
do.
going on there. It was
Me
a
and the
dude.
horse.
He said it was a dude ranch, so
Oh,
Get your
boy.
mind out of
This
it.
is really taking a bad turn. I hope Coach Curry is in
I had
this thing.
something when he said I'd never shot a gun before. I had something for that. I thought, I'll let that go.
Oh my God. Anyway,
My
so
bad.
they did have
bad.
the afternoon you go skeet shooting. And I said, yeah, I need to rest my behind. So I went skeet shooting, and you have a shotgun, and I'd never done that before. And they were throwing up the targets, and I had the video on my phone to prove it. And I was nailing every target. Every target was. So
How was
maybe
your
I actually.
calling?
Yeah.
Maybe I was meant to be in the Wild
Maybe
West.
you would have been the American sniper.
Right, that's what I was
maybe.
thinking.
Yeah.
But again, remember, you're dealing a shotgun, so you don't have to be perfect.
Right.
You just need to
Right.
get a part of the target
Yeah,
and whatever. But I actually enjoyed it.
And Mark is good. We did axe throwing in Arizona. He's
Oh, yeah.
good at that too. So when it comes to weapons that can kill
Right.
you, come to that
Mark's
guy.
the guy.
And-
Oh,
He's probably got a butterfly knife on him. I don't know where this is.
what does this pin do?
And Bill kept saying, Mark, why do you want me to stand near the target?
Yeah.
I said, just
stand
trust
right
me.
there. You'll be good.
Steelers, Part 3 by Roy Blunt Jr. How does it really feel? This is taken from his book, About 3 Bricks Shy of a Load. One of the first books he ever wrote. He ended up writing 25, 30 books.
Yeah.
One,
They all look interesting.
yeah,
We did try to get him as a guest.
we did.
Yep.
He may still say yes.
About 3 months down the road. That's how it works.
We're shooting for Rocky Blyer,
This
too.
excerpt from his book
Yeah,
is on
yeah.
football players' hands. Now, when you think of that, when you think of like a football player's hands, automatically you think of a receiver. They're
Yeah.
talking about, but this is not. This is actually about how their hands just get so beat up. In fact, guard Bruce Van Dyke says that they're so beat up, he does everything he can not to shake hands with people.
Well, the picture on the cover with that guy's hand was
Right?
thumb was like or
Yeah.
a finger, yeah.
You know, like if he's hitchhiking, like
Yeah, yeah.
he's pointing west.
Yeah.
Most players tape their fingers together in different ways to try and keep them from getting broken. Defensive end Dwight White says you can't play football, I don't care what position, without hands. I use them to pull, knock down, grab. Hands are as important as eyes. In 1972, L.C.
Oh,
Greenwood
yeah,
looked
this-
down in the midst of a play to see the upper two-thirds of his middle finger completely twisted around backwards and crossed over the ring finger. I couldn't figure out what had happened, so I fixed it right there in the middle of the play and went on, which is, what most people would do. His finger's completely broken. I thought this was very interesting. Terry Bradshaw, the quarterback, is warming up with the writer. Okay. And, the guy thinks he's talking a good game. He's like, I could catch
Getting
whatever.
a feel for it.
There's a difference between catching a ball from me or Mark and from a professional football quarterback.
Yes.
So he said they were just coming in there. And he goes, he actually underthrew him at some point. And he was like, I'm going to stop doing this. But photographer Walter Yost, whom we had on a couple weeks ago, Sports Illustrated photographer, over 300 covers, maybe the best sports photographer of all time.
Yep.
He barely got his hands up in time and said all of a sudden the ball was just there. The ball came in a line. So they got a real up and close lesson in what it's like to catch. When you see up close, Tom Brady,
You've seen
Peyton Manning,
Yeah.
you're catching that ball out of defense because if you don't, it's going through your face.
Yeah, those balls are you obviously all of us have been down on the field to see that. It's just, it would hurt, kill you.
Yeah,
Well, you're
It could
taught,
kill you.
You know, in high school, I was taught to catch a football on the football team like this. You almost make a triangle
Right.
with both your two thumbs and your index
Yeah,
fingers.
I didn't. Yeah, I never played.
And then you have to catch it. But, it can hurt.
Yeah.
Now, who do you think's the hardest thrower nowadays in the NFL? Josh Allen?
Josh Allen, Rodgers in his prime.
I'm saying now,
really
like let's say
bring it.
Josh
Yeah,
Allen.
Yeah.
What yardage would you want to be at, feel comfortable at, for him to throw a ball at full speed to you? 20-yard line, 50-yard. I mean, where would you want to be? Like if he said just run a pattern, go 20 yards.
Nothing under 20.
Okay.
Right.
Because the ball's got to slow down. I would hope
Right,
eventually.
exactly.
No, because you'd say I'd like to do an out and up because I would like, you have
Yeah,
to
then
put
it's-
some arc on the
yeah.
ball.
Okay, so no crossing patterns.
Yeah, or I'll do a corner
no
pattern.
hitch pad.
Yeah.
pattern.
Oh God. Yeah.
You do a
Yeah.
corner pattern where it looks like you're running a post, which is up the middle, but then
Yeah.
you cut on an angle and you go back to the outside. Again, they tend to have a little more arc on those.
And that's the thing, these guys do these little quick throws and
Yes.
they drop it, and you're like, come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we would catch it.
Right.
You're like, I'd get that. No, I wouldn't.
Now,
Steelers.
if we could get Rocky Blyer on the show, there's a great article where it says that he does this chicken
Dance, yeah.
imitation where he brushes his hair up like a comb and hunches down with his chest out and walks around like a hen and clucks.
Do you think he'd do that for us?
I don't think so.
Now, I think he'd kick her what
Yeah,
first.
exactly.
The Steelers went to Palm Springs to prep for the playoff game against the Raiders. It was a place filled with many distractions, according to Blunt, and the Raiders got the better of Pittsburgh 33-14. Keep in mind, this is the 73 season he is writing about. So they were just on the brink of becoming a dynasty, but they would lose in 73 before winning the Super Bowl in 74 and 75. Dickey and Mickey. I like this one. Florida football coach Doug Dickey said, I went to the Magic Kingdom and was told that Mickey Mouse could only dash out for a quick shot and then back, else he'd be mobbed by children. Sure enough, as soon as he showed up, he was surrounded by thousands of kids. Not a living soul knew who I was or cared. I tell you, that's humbling, being ignored in favor of a mouse, and a phony one at that. When the photo had been taken, Dickey asked Mickey, is it hot in that suit? And Mickey said, waving to the kids, hotter than hell.
Mickey does talk.
Mickey talks.
I've got one about Pete Rose because I just read his
yeah.
book.
Go ahead.
Pete Rose, who does not smoke, has recently completed a cigar commercial. And what will this do to his clean-cut Charlie Hustle image? I wouldn't endorse anything you inhale, he explains solemnly. Nobody inhales a cigar, including me. Yeah.
I like the one about politicians can find themselves on the firing line. The Colorado governor at that time, John Vanderhoof, was watching a minor league baseball game in Denver, and Pete Lecoq of Wichita, who led the American Association in home runs, was upset when the official score ruled that a Denver outfielder had erred on a drive. So in the bottom half of the inning, the same scorer charged Lecoq with a fielding error. So Lecoq angrily fired the ball at the press row, meaning to the score. He narrowly missed hitting the governor. Imagine if he made contact there. And Pete Lecoq, had a major league career. We all remember the Cubs. And you know who his dad was, by the
Peter
way?
Marshall.
Peter
I was
Marshall.
just
was
looking that up.
a host of the Hollywood Squares.
Yep.
All right, baseball, reaching the top in one mighty pop. We talked with Ron Cey earlier in the show, and Cey probably would have been the best third baseman of the 70s if it weren't for this guy, Mike Schmidt. After hitting 196 his rookie season with the Phils, the slugger was having a breakout campaign, hitting .313 with 25 homers and 87 RBIs. Last year, he didn't just struggle at the plate. He also had kind of an attitude issue. When his manager would come out to the mound to take a pitcher out, Schmidt would just stand at third base with his arms folded. He said, why do I need to go? I know what he's going to say, but and he said, I'm really the same guy this year. The only difference is I'm not hitting 200.
I like what the manager said. Danny Ozark had so little faith in him that once with runners with first and second open and a man on third, Ozark had the runner break for the plate on a grounder hit directly at the third baseman. The man was thrown out easily, and the manager explained the unorthodox tactics by saying Schmidt was the next hitter, and he strikes out a lot. They didn't do that the next year.
No.
Or the next year.
Or the next year. Or the yes.
I like the fact that Schmidt has this famous Yogi Berra, how how would you say it? When he says something that doesn't make sense.
Yes.
On his locker, and it was like, how can you think and hit at the same time?
Yes. You can't. You have to
You
hit
have
and
to
react.
you have to shut it off.
Another baseball note there for you, Mark. I'm teeing you up because I know what it's got to
Oh,
be.
you got to
gosh,
know
yes.
what it is.
Yes.
It's that the Tigers are calling up a new
Yeah.
player, 22-year outfielder Ron LaFleur, who, like teammate Gates Brown, who was a great pinch hitter for the Tigers, and by the way, that's all he did was pinch hit, is a former convict. So Tigers went to the penal colony for some more players.
But Ron LaFleur had some great
Oh,
seasons.
He
had some
did.
great
I
seasons.
loved him.
Was it Billy Martin or
Yeah.
someone went to prison and because people were raving about him in prison.
Yeah.
And
He
He
said,
wasn't
let's sign-
sentenced to prison. He visited a prison.
Yes.
Billy Martin was no.
Although if there was one guy.
Yeah, but Ron LaFleur was sentenced to prison.
He was.
And he was so fast, but was a good hitter too.
I loved
Stole
him.
2 bases in his first game and
Yeah.
never stopped.
Yeah, and made All-Star team when he was
That
with
was
the
before the
Expos.
game.
And
Right.
with the Tigers. 76, he made the All-Star game too.
And Juan Santo, he refused to let the Angels acquire him from the Cubs.
Yeah, smart man.
That's
I mean,
a
you
guy
got to
I
think
like.
that. You got to think he was like on the Cubs that hadn't won a World Series
Yeah.
in like forever. He's like, I'm not going
No.
there.
They had Nolan Ryan on that team then, too. You still don't want to go.
All right, we got to fast forward here. Young Man on the Run by Jim Dunn, who was the young man on the run. In fact, he was running 1,750 miles from Mexico to Canada. He was just 16 years old when he approached Sports Illustrated about making this run and writing about it for them. At first, they balked, but then he persisted. They showed interest, and finally, they gave him some parameters to follow and go for it. He told his mom the plan, and she said, "Why not?"
That's the coolest mom in
right?
the world.
I swear to God,
that's
it's
the
crazy.
coolest mom in the world.
She agreed to drive the supply wagon. July 1st was the deadline for departure, so Jim could be done in time for school in September. He wondered if the people on his route would be kind to him or try to kill him. There was a little of both, as he
Yeah.
found out. So he had a little bit of anxiety going into his adventure. They drive south. The family drives south to the border. He starts in Mexico with the goal of running 42 miles on the first day back to his hometown of Del Mar. God, that is just insane.
And the thing
This
is,
July 1st.
But I'm saying his mom would go. Let's say they'd get a hotel 20 miles away.
Right.
He would have her drive him back to the spot where they picked him
Right.
up, so he didn't cheat.
Nope.
He literally ran that
The
whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. He reached his house later that night and felt horrible. 42 miles was a bit long. His body needed time to recuperate. After just one day, a new plan might need to be hatched. He ran only 18 miles on the second day, felt a big improvement. 5 days later, he was in L.A., then headed to Santa Barbara. He found someone that told him he could run on freeways, so that was big.
Yeah, that works.
And this guy, John Notch, ran the last 20 miles with him that day. On a crazy hot day in Lompoc, he heard gunshots in a parking lot. 3 weeks in, he was back up to about 40 miles per day. His body able to take the constant pounding. It took him 41 days to get to Oregon. That's about 1,000 miles. He had trouble getting into Washington because he had to go over a bridge that didn't allow pedestrians. So he bribed, not bribed, but really talked the guard into just letting him.
The guard
do
said, "I
this."
just can't see you. You can do it.
Right.
I just can't
don't
see
tell
you."
me. That's
Yep.
right. September 1st, he's in Tacoma. A few days later in Seattle, he and his mom get lost. Well, they get separated. She can't find him. He can't find her. 2 a.m., he finally goes into a police station. Remember, he's 16 years
yeah,
old. And, this is pre-cell phones and
yeah.
all that
No
kind of
way.
stuff. She so happens to just call that police station. Happy ending. He's fine. September 7th, Canada. Mission accomplished. Journey over. His diary that he was writing for Sports Illustrated, he turns in a few months later, 105-page manuscript. So he basically wrote a book, and they published it. So
We
I
tried
thought that
to
was
find him.
Yeah,
We
I
all
couldn't
tried to
find
find him.
No.
Nope.
That's
no-
because he's
no
still
presence.
running now.
Right,
I don't know
but he's
where
running
he
back.
is. Right.
That's
there
like
was-
that
there
old.
was-
That's like that old
We
Ellen
should-
DeGeneres joke where she says, "My grandmother, she started at age 70, running 5 miles a day, 5 miles every day." She goes, "It's been a couple years. We don't know where she is."
Maybe we should go. Maybe we should check some Seattle police stations.
Now,
and see if he's there.
Now, this was done in 74 because this had something to do with Mark. I'm not sure if you read this, Scott. It said when he was running on the beach for a short period, he looked in the distance and he could see nudists doing their
Yes,
thing.
he saw Mark.
Yeah,
That's right.
Mark
Guys
was
with
there.
I was
binoculars.
streaking
Yeah.
with him.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Every issue, Mark comes up.
He does.
I did.
Every streaker one.
For the record, I got one.
Yep.
Detroit Pistons sold for $8.1 million.
Yep.
They're now valued at just over $3 billion.
Oh, good deal.
You guys got one?
I got one in pro football. It says right here that, and this must have been an exhibition game, Los Angeles, the Rams defeat the Cleveland Browns 24-21 on a field goal by WFL reject Bob Thomas.
There we go.
Where do we know
That's
that?
right.
name?
I know. He was
Thomas, one of our
awesome.
first guests.
Our first guest. He was awesome.
Went on to become a judge. Go and listen. Back in January, and this is the stuff I love about this. You said the Rams won that game.
Yeah.
Bill Curry's on that team.
There you
That's
go.
right. Wow.
Right?
Wow, good tie in there.
Right, and Merlin Olsen,
Good
whom
guy.
we talked
Good
about.
job, Larry David.
So, all right, faces in the crowd.
Jimmy Streeter.
Yeah, of
Well,
course.
that was obvious. Former QB at Tennessee, but he was a two-sport star in Silva in North Carolina. He had a rough life after that, but still, he was really good there.
All SEC in 79.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think he played a little bit in the CFL.
Yep. And then Wayne Jackson, he won 10 consecutive Peninsula Amateurs golf-wise. I think that's what it was. And he was an older guy, but still, he's in the Virginia Golf Hall of Fame.
Good for him.
Good.
Yep. And then the 19th hole, the one
No.
talking about Del Miller, because you were the one that read that article.
Oh,
It
give
just
it to me.
concerning your article on Del Miller about 18
The
years
harness
ago.
racing guy.
That's right. That's right. About 18 years ago, a colleague of mine told the following story on herself. Miller was a member of a junior high social studies class she was teaching. The pupils were given the assignment of choosing a vocation they would like to follow, doing research on it, and writing a report of their choice. Miller had written about horses, so he always wanted to do that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Nice. Good catch there. Hey, I want to thank once again our guest, LA Dodgers great Ron Cey. When we started this thing at the beginning of the year, it was guys like Cey that we dreamed of getting to come on and talk with us because they are so emblematic of that time in the mid-'70s.
And
you know?
Cey didn't want to stop either.
Oh, I know.
We kept going with him. He had so many unbelievable stories.
Yes. No, that is so true. So true. So thank you, Ron. Any parting thoughts on today's show, guys?
I'm really interested in that horror movie. So,
Yeah.
Mark can give us a review.
Yeah, I'm going to go to YouTube and check that out. But I also went on YouTube. You can check out the Willie Mays Bewitched episode.
Oh,
okay.
perfect.
I shall do that.
Until next week, the Merry Mex, Lee Trevino on the cover. I'm Scott Johnston for Bill, for Mark. Thanks for listening to three guys who are past our prime. Thanks, guys.
See ya.